The Smithsonian keeps them.
So I'm going to share my screen. And I've made a little
Diagram.
for us, if I can find it up here.
Did that.
Oh, come on, move this thing out.
Did you look at that Spinoza diagram I sent you ever?
I did. I'm working hard. Not easy. Okay, I took a few bits out of the book, and what I want to do is just focus on them, right? So do you see, is there like a black mark across here, or can you read? No, that's so
We can read it. We can read it.
Just the text. We see 4 lines.
Yes, that's the text we want. Okay, Maury, let's go.
I love the headline. Faith is the courage to take a risk. Somewhere just beyond the edge of the universe, at the far side of the knowable, there either is or not the presence who brought it and life and you into being. You have to make a choice, and it will affect the whole of your life.
So I think just in context, until now, his premise has been from a rational point of view, right? From a rational point of view, does belief make sense? And his argument is, yes, it does. It's quite probable, right? I can't prove it, but it's probable. Now, this is really to me, a bit of a mixture. It's okay. It's kind of like, but am I going to live my life on something that's probable? So his argument here is, yes, you need to, because to live your life saying, well, it's only probable and therefore I'm not going to live with it, is also making a decision to follow the probable, right? That probably there's not a God if you came to that, right? So it's almost like you're stuck with having to make a choice. And I don't normally think of it in these terms, but I found this verse in the Torah. It's a very famous verse, well-known verse. Yep. Go on, Maury.
Wait 1 second. I got to reorient my where the photos are. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm not reading the Hebrew. From Deuteronomy, I'll call heaven.
Well, we could ask Uri to sing it to us, but I don't know if he wants to.
Don't have a tune for that. Sing to the tune of Happy Birthday if you want.
I'll call heaven and earth to witness against you this day. I have put before you life and death, blessing and curse. Choose life so that you and your offspring will live. Yeah. Is that courage?
Yeah, I think so. I think
Why?
Exactly so.
Why is it courage?
It's a choice. It's a choice. Choose life. It's courage. He's saying it's your free will. You know?
If I put a gun to your head and I say, tell me I'm the best person in the world, is that courage?
It's death metaphorically.
Okay.
Not literally. It's a life of meaning. It's a life of meaning versus a life of no meaning. It's meaning, not literal death, I think.
Yeah. Well, it could be life and death in the next world. But I think
put that little emoji at the bottom to say this is one way or another. I mean, I think he put the emoji down at the bottom to indicate you don't have a choice.
That's my emoji, not Moses's.
Of course it is. I know that, but I'm just disagreeing with.
Lev enjoyed that. Yes, Maury. I started off by saying I don't normally look at this verse this way, but it occurred to me to look at it this way.
Yeah. Right.
Listen, if it was gun at the head, would Moses have to say it? Right? What really is Moses telling us? Well, this is to his generation and to all future generations. What's the meaning of the verse? How do you understand it?
As a question to me, how would I understand it otherwise?
Yeah.
I mean, if it wasn't, Ori, what was your word that you described it as? Wasn't It wasn't strict.
Metaphorical. I said it was
Metaphorical.
metaphorical, yeah.
You
Wasn't
know,
literal, yeah.
Wasn't literal. Thank you. I couldn't grab the word. You know, it's interesting that there are times when we interpret the Torah and we certainly say things are, this is it. This is it. It's very black and white. It's very clear what it means. And then other times we look at the Torah and say, well, it just means it's from a metaphorical place. So of course you can get to choose and you can be selective here. And if I look at it from a literal perspective, I think it's pretty clear. I'm only reacting to the fact that I say, I don't know that I believe it's courageous when you have a binary choice and one choice is horrible and the other choice is fine. Those aren't the hard questions in life. The hard questions are when two things are right on the gray and you got to figure it out.
So maybe I agree with you. I agree with you, Murray. I think, which is really, it's a perush, it's a commentary on the verse, is that what Moshe is telling the people, telling us, is, you know, you might think the choices before you that I've put, right, which Moshe is the Torah that Moses puts before us, right? Are you going to speak Lashon Hara? Are you not going to speak Lashon Hara? Are you, you know, all the mitzvot, the way of life that he's presented to us. You kind of look at it and we think, yes, no, yes, no. And Moshe is giving it its implication. And he's saying, don't think these are small choices. This is a huge choice, right?
Yeah.
You really are making, you're really making very significant choices. In fact, life and death choices, right? This is what right? My I don't want to call them anti-vax because I don't know if they go that far, but anti-vax, like COVID light friends and family. I often use this and I say to them, you know, this is not a small decision you're making. You're playing with life and death, right? This is a big decision you're making to take this lightly. You know, don't, you know, and if it's not for you or whatever. So maybe that's the implication. Now, does that then relate to Jonathan Sacks?
So before you go on, what strikes me about this quote, which directly relates to Jonathan Sacks, which we haven't focused on, is that Sacks spends the previous part of the chapter making the argument that he calls heaven and earth to witness that the probability is that there is a creator. And that's what this pasuk says. I call heaven and earth to witness against you. In other words, here's the evidence that I called as a witness against you this day. So to me, that's a very exact parallel.
Wow, beautiful, Uri. I never saw that. Look at that.
Yep. Hashemayim v'ta'aretz, hachayim v'am, yeah, I think ha'idoti b'chem, yeah, ha'idoti. Huh, yeah, I think so. That's the key. There's evidence.
I want you to come back to it once more and say it one more time. I'm so sorry.
So the parallel between this and Sacks's pitch is also in the first part of his sentence where he says, Moshe says, I call heaven and earth in the name of God. I call heaven and earth to witness against you this day. Namely, the creation of heaven and earth is evidence of the fact that you should be choosing life. In the same way that Sacks has said, based on cosmology, on biology, on survival of religion, on survival of the Jews, et cetera, on history, et cetera, there's evidence of heaven and earth as witnesses for the case to choose life. Right?
Ari, I always appreciate the beautiful way you analyze things. Thank you. I really, we often disagree on our perspectives, but goodness gracious, you enlightened me so much. Thank you.
Thank you. It's striking to me here, actually.
Yeah, wow, excellent. Okay. Yes, okay, let's go on. Excellent. Okay, next bit. I couldn't, I couldn't edit completely. So I want to start from the words you. You can never know. Lev, are you up to reading a little?
Sure. What's the first word? Gogunin?
I know.
Yeah.
That's why I want you
Yeah,
to
or-
start from the word you.
Oh, you.
Yeah.
You can never know in advance the facts that would make your decision the right one under the circumstances that applies to the decision to marry, to have a child, to start a business, to undertake a research project, to write a symphony, to paint a picture. There is no creation without risk. As far as I can see. What impresses me about the Bible
No,
is
no, no.
the-
That's
okay,
it.
all right, that's it. Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
It's a fascinating point, right? It's almost like he's saying, well, put it this way, on the previous point, I think we all had this feeling like it's such a pity that faith is such a ungraspable, or, wouldn't we want it that it's so evident and it's just so apparent? It's almost a pity that we can't grasp it. And here I think he's turning it around and saying, just embrace it. Embrace the fact that creation comes with risk. It's almost the power, it's almost the part of the power of creation is that you're bringing into being that which is unknown yet. And
what is striking to me also is the next sentence where he says, what impresses me about the Bible is that it suggests that even for God, creating humanity was a risk, and one that at least once he regretted having taken.
What's the
I
example that would be
purposely cut that. That would be the flood.
the flood? I was
Correct.
curious if that's what it would be. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. But I mean, to me, that is a striking addition to the idea, right?
Uri and Lev, unfortunately, Maury doesn't join us on Tuesday nights, although I think he would really enjoy it, but he is very busy. Keep that in mind. Lev, you don't have the book in front of you, do you?
Which book?
This book, Jonathan Sax's?
No,
Oh,
I
okay.
don't.
Did you hear what Uri said? That the Bible says that God took a risk in creation.
Yeah.
And that's the implication from the flood. I want to know if the Ramchal agrees to that in Dat Tvunot.
Is that a rhetorical question, or do you want an answer? You know the answer?
I don't know if we can answer it yet. I'm not sure. I would say this whole thing of Hashem Echad and Hashem bringing the world to this place of clarity and revelation is beyond risk. That's within God's
Correct.
ability.
I think the Ramchal is much more dogmatic and closed system than Sachs.
Yes.
That's what bothers me about it.
Oh,
That's what
interesting.
I have a hard time with anyone who proposes a closed system to explain everything. It drives me nuts.
How is it again that if God knows the outcomes of things, it's risky?
Yes,
doesn't.
it's not. That's what we're arguing, Murray. Sorry to pull you into the conversation. It's exactly. So I'm not, that's why I love closed systems and everything clear and nice. So I
Spoken like a true econometrician.
So I purposely left it out.
No. But Sachs is very much acknowledging it's an open system and you have choice.
Why do you think Sachs uses the word facts in the first sentence that we read?
Interesting word, right? It jarred me.
To me, they're not facts.
They're
beliefs. They're beliefs.
Well, no, he's saying you can never know in advance the facts that would make your decision the right one. Meaning you can never know for sure that it's going to work. So it really is. What do you want? You can never know
The
If you were
outcomes,
100% sure about your
outcomes.
belief, it would become fact.
Right.
I think it is. the right-
well, Elvis hasn't died. I believe that, right? Right. I'm not going to go with your last sentence there.
No, that you can never know in advance the facts that, let's turn it into beliefs, right? You can never know in advance the beliefs that would make your decision the right one under the circumstances, meaning,
That's why I challenged the word. That's all.
I think it makes sense to be facts because in the future, they are facts.
they'll be
If you look
clarified.
back,
Yes.
if you look back, it's a fact that making this choice to marry this woman was the right choice. Or it's a fact that, making a choice to marry this woman was a disaster because we ended up in divorce. It becomes a fact. So you can't know the facts in advance. I mean, it is a fact. Later on, the past is
Right.
what it was, it was like, if you look back, you're like, well, this is, I don't know. It's the way you perceive time in
No,
a
I
way
agree
that
100% with you, Lev. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I get it too, but I'm going to say it differently. Okay. And to be very respectful to the woman who I love dearly, right? I'm very happy and I'm grateful for the marriage that I have. But the facts could have been very different if I wasn't married to her, to somebody else, or not married at all. And you don't have the knowledge of knowing
Right.
what those alternatives will be. So I still come back. So Uri is agreeing with me. There's the miracle of the day.
No, I agree. So far, so far.
Okay.
Keep going. so I can just
Well,
agree.
I'm only challenging one word, and I don't want us to get stuck on it. I
So-
don't know
so-
that I don't think they're
Well,
facts. That's all.
Maury, you're saying even at the end of the day, when you think it's the right one, you're still not 100% clear.
I don't think our minds are set up to be 100% clear, period.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I
Okay.
agree. For me, this is a very personal issue because I spent 3 decades professionally in my professional niche, and my writing and my teaching and my national reputation as an urban planner, to the degree I have one, is based on the notion of creating scenarios for the future, to reduce uncertainty. That's what I do. When I come to a community and I ask them, what should your future be? I create scenarios of alternative futures. And I've always been struck by the notion that this is an act of hubris, an act of, in a sense, arrogance.
I agree with you, right? Strategic
But-
plans are lovely, but they're irrelevant as soon as they're finished.
Well, the problem is, how can you create futures sufficiently well grounded to bracket possibilities and give people some choices, or are you wasting your time in future scenarios, right? So my professional practice and belief for 30 years has been, yes, you can. Here they are. Now make some choices. And I have a lot of self-doubt about that whole enterprise, actually. Even
Well,
though
the unknown-
it's better than nothing.
Right,
You've got to do
what's the
something.
expression? You can only plan for the unknowns, or the only known is the fact that it's unknown, right? I mean, I
Right,
don't
right.
have it
It's-
perfect, but
It's
that's
the,
what
it's
it is.
the unknown unknowns, as Rumsfeld famously said, right?
Yes.
You can't, yeah, right. But that is our dilemma. And if you've got to act, you've got to do your best. And my response to that dilemma for me personally is, okay, so I'll do my best on the future scenarios and hope that I've bracketed some real options. But the obvious example is COVID, right? Who could have
Exactly.
projected COVID and blah, 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 blah. So you will always miss something. Is that a reason
Even
not
if
to
you had
try?
projected it, nobody would have had you do anything to protect against it, period. Because nobody
and
would
so-
believe you.
And so I've done lots of scenarios where people said, no, that's never going to happen. And they've dismissed them. I've had clients who said, nah, we're not going to look at that. And that's exactly what happened. Like the bubble bursting in 2008, we had evidence. I was doing a plan for Greater Gwinnett County in Atlanta. And I had a researcher say, hey, something weird is happening with all these foreclosures. There's something going on well before the bubble burst. And I said, hey, look at this, guys. There's something going on here. Nah, forget it. I've been arguing for doing a terrorist scenario overtaking Washington, D.C. because of its impacts on decentralizing federal offices as part of the scenario building I do for the future of our region. And I've never been able to persuade anyone, even post 9/11, that it was worth pretending that that's a possibility. So I'm very obsessed with the notion of
To January 6th change that?
no. Why? No,
Well-
I don't. No. In the sense that a real coup and a real revolution, no, that was a blip in my mind.
Uh-huh. Interesting.
Anyhow, I'm sorry
Did you
to
hear the
divert.
news? Did you hear the news recently about what Trump is calling for
No.
from yesterday?
What's the latest?
He said
No.
he spoke at a rally in Texas, and he said
Yeah.
if any of these prosecutors do anything illegal, I'm calling you guys right now to rise up in Washington D.C., in Atlanta, in every city around the country to so
It's so dangerous.
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah. I would like to see his justification for the title of this section. The courage of faith.
What do you mean
Because if I-
justification?
What's that, buddy?
What do you mean justification?
I'm still troubled by the headline. I think it's great, provocative, right? It's courageous to believe in faith.
Oh, but-
Because I would
so-
probably argue to you that if you did a test of personalities of people who are faith leaning versus not faith leaning and try to define out the word courage, it would produce some pretty interesting results. So I want to see how he defines what makes it more courageous.
Well, so the next two paragraphs in the text deal with exactly that.
And that's what I'm eager to hear, if that's.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also think, Murray,
Uh-huh.
you got to take this whole chapter from where it comes, meaning he's talking to a person who's not a believer.
Right.
He's trying to, it's a persuasive chapter, actually. He's
Yes.
talking to someone who's not a believer and says, I don't believe in God because I can't prove him. And this is Jonathan Sachs's discussion with that person.
Right.
So imagine such a person who's like, okay, I get you, Rabbi. I can't prove God, but I can't prove there's no God. So I'm left with, what are the chances? You've given some pretty good arguments about why it's probable. And now he's appealing to the, I guess, the
Courage to take a
fear,
risk.
right? The fear of what happens if I'm wrong. How can I make this without knowledge? Yes, it's probable, but still, it might be crazy. And
Right.
Sachs is
If
saying
you-
to him,
it- uh-huh.
Sachs is saying to him, yeah, all big decisions are really very risky, right? That's part of the creative process. Have the courage to do it. So for me, that makes sense. Yeah, I don't think of my belief, and I have a bit at the end about my belief coming soon, if I stop talking. I don't think this way. I'm not sure. I'd like to know, we can get to that at the end. I'd like to know how Uri thinks, how Lev thinks, how you think about it. Yeah, I would not, if you ask me, are you courageous to believe in God? Not at all. The word does not come in my vocabulary, for belief. But
But back in Manchester 30 years ago, surely it did.
Yeah, I agree with that comment wholeheartedly. You showed great courage to change.
Had to be when you were trying to find an answer, Rabbi, for why the world exists and why things are, and you chose an answer.
Right,
That was a
right.
leap of faith. Surely.
yes.
Especially
Then-
when you
then-
weren't in then that environment, right?
Now you take it as a given, but not then. He's
That's
addressing
true.
you at the point of choice. That's
And
what
what's
he's
the
addressing.
word Baal Shuvash mean?
Well,
Master
Baal
of the
Teshuva,
return.
it really means someone that has done, someone that's mastered teshuva, a repentance, changing.
Coming back.
Yeah,
Teshuvah.
but don't you think involved in that definition and in the world, it comes from courage? It takes courage to come back.
I think so.
I would also argue, and I'm sorry because it's going to be contrary to the lesson plan here, somebody who's had a life of orthodoxy and all that they have seen is that and makes a decision to change for good reason also is showing remarkable courage.
Yes. Yeah, 100, of course. Just in my mind, it's funny because if I try go back there, Manchester 2001, the courage was much more social than
But that might be
metaphysical.
how it started.
Sorry?
You mean walking away from the social context into another one?
Yes, that was the real pressure. To me, okay, I have to think about it more. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I think it does make sense. I'm just not sure that I really experienced it that way. I don't know. Lev,
Don't you think
you've
the decision to change is really about 1,000 decisions to change? It's really not just one thing.
right.
Okay, I did this for social reasons. I did this because I felt that I was following some guidance. I wanted to strive for something different. I wanted an education. I wanted a construct around me. I mean, it was a decision after a decision, and I'm sure you're still making some of those decisions, just like you wrestled where to send your son to school.
Yeah.
You're wrestling with it every day. I think there's a lot of courage in those decisions.
And in that sense, for all of us, right? Well,
Yes.
as Rabbi Dessler says, it really is depending on where you are and what you're dealing with.
I would just say that my gradient of change from the time I was born until how I relate to Judaism today are pretty consistent, right? I have not changed. I know more, but I haven't changed. So, but you changed.
Okay, all right. That's very complicated conversation.
Okay, well, you think
But-
about it.
but-
I'll read it in the weekly wow. in a
But
few weeks.
let me ask you a question. Do you think of your average free will choices as having the courage to choose when you make the right choice, when what you consider the right choice? Is there an
Yes.
element of courage, or is there
Yes.
an element of living up to what you know to be right? How so, Uri?
It's a risk. It's a risk. These choices are risks, and choosing to go one way rather than another is taking a risk. I don't think of it in terms of courage as such. I just weigh the odds, so to speak, and I take the risk. I don't know if that is courage. He's saying that is faith is the courage. Faith is
Right,
the
right.
courage.
But he
So-
says in that sentence, Uri, this applies to marrying, having a
Yeah,
child,
yeah,
a business. He's definitely saying it in a broader sense.
I agree. It resonates with me. Yeah, it does speak to me as an idea. Yes.
I think it's
Well-
easy to see the word facts in relationship to business, because you could look back at a business decision or a stock market purchase as, well, the facts are the stock went up and I made $1 million. You can't know in advance when you make that risk. I mean, I don't know. I'm just going back to whatever. the
Lev,
idea of facts.
Lev, does the word courage resonate with you in this conversation?
Courage. I think so. I mean, you know, when you take a leap of faith, it's like it's courageous to take a leap of faith. Like when you step into the Sea of Reeds or the Yam Su, you know, you don't know, but you just have the courage to just do it. And because of faith, I think a leap of faith and courage kind of go hand in hand. And, you know, just looking back at the decisions that we both, you know, made to take a leap of faith or to go through a different direction, it's easier to see it as courageous back then. But now, if you're, you know, just keeping kosher every day, it doesn't seem so courageous of a choice now. But maybe then it was like, wow, you know, I'm gonna not eat at, you know, with my family. I'm gonna cut off all these social ties. I'm gonna do this and that. And I'm not gonna have, you know, be able to go to my mother's house for dinner. I mean, that's pretty courageous. Chutzpah to, I mean, yeah, it was crazy back then.
Right.
It was a leap of faith. So I don't know. I think courage does work
Yeah, that's interesting.
because you believe, you know, you just believe that you're doing the right thing. Yeah, I think it is courageous.
I think this discussion's very, very good because I think we're really debating the essential characteristics of a human being about change, right? And what it takes to do it. And I find it literally impossible to change beyond what I conceive to be the things to do and to persuade others, right? And that's what leaders want to do. They want to come up with a vision and try to persuade others to come along. And we live in a incredibly change-resistant world. So it's a very, very interesting topic. And I continue to be curious to see what he has to say about change further. So can we move down a little bit? Because I want to see how that applies.
Sure.
Yes,
I just want to add, Murray, to what you said, is that it's getting me, this conversation's really getting me to think about courage. I have a very basic understanding of it. You know, you're courageous to fight the lion, you know, because you might get hurt. But
These 3 firefighters who died, right? They went into a building that nobody was in, and they lost their lives. I don't think there's any doubt that they were courageous. This was more than training. This was individuals who believed they had to do what they did. And it's so horrible what happened to them, right? I agree. But if you do something out of roteness, Abe did it this way, I do it this way, my child's going to do it this way, I'm not so sure that's courageous. That's why I'm talking about so emphasis on change.
mhm.
Yeah. But it's a form of moral courage, right? It's a form of moral.
Yes.
Yes, which if anyone I look up to for that, it's you, Murray. I do.
You're not looking high enough, sir.
I do. No, you know, I'm in this. I know you want to get on, but this is important. You know, sometimes you know, I think about, when does this come up in my life? It actually comes up when I need to say things to people, either about who I am, right? I do this, I don't do that. You know, when they expect me to do something which is not what I expect of myself, or to correct others who I think are making a mistake. And I find that so hard.
Oh, we lost Uri. He'll get readmitted. You find it so hard to correct others?
In both those situations, to go against the
Grain?
I know it sounds crazy because I've made like huge changes in my life, but you know, as you said, the 1,000 changes, right? But yes, you know, if someone does something, and you know, it was an example. Yeah, there was an example. Just whatever. Someone was at us for Friday night, and you know, they said this funny little, you know, you say sometimes after hearing God's name, you say Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo. Now, if someone's saying a blessing for you, you should not say it. It's actually an interruption. It's only if you're hearing someone else say it that you heard God's name, so you should bless it. But if they're saying the bracha for you, you should just say Amen. And the person said that during Kiddush, and I was making Kiddush, so it was wrong of him to say it. And I was like, well, I should correct him. And then I felt this tremendous opposition to why, why go against his grain? Why, and I'm
Well,
thinking,
that's a hard question, but did the person do it without knowledge?
yes,
Okay, but you're a teacher.
I know. And still it's hard for me. I'm thinking now, like, probably what was hard for me was at the moment, because
Well, that's correct. And that wouldn't have been the time to do it.
maybe, yeah, in public or something. Right.
I was I don't think I've told you this story. But about 15, maybe 10 years ago, I was at a national convention for the JCCs, and there were about 20 people in the room. And somehow I came up with a statement in the room because we were dealing with how to find less affiliated people. And I said, intermarriage is a problem. And someone from Seattle, Oregon piped up as soon as I said that and really chewed me out in front of the whole room. And intermarriage is not a problem, right? And she explained her life. And of course, I'm retreating into my seat under the circumstances. And I listened and I was humbled. And I certainly learned that that's not something I can say in those kinds of forums anymore, because inevitably somebody else is going to have the same viewpoint about that. So about 4 months ago, I was at a program at Pearlstone and somebody else said the same thing. And I corrected him on the spot. And I told it in the form of the story that what happened to me and how I made the mistake on this. Though lo and behold, 2 people after I said something said they were highly offended that this other person said it because their children are intermarried and they don't want to be looking at their children as problems, right? So I don't know if it's courage to correct, but you're trying to help people. And
But if it's not a problem,
your
what is it?
motivation. What is,
How can it not be a problem?
Well, how it depends on how you look at it.
It's a challenge.
And I would imagine that many of the people who are unaffiliated would say, no, you shouldn't be looking at it. You should be looking at it as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to bring Judaism into more homes, more people.
But it's also an opportunity to like cut your whole lineage off to like,
Well,
whole
and I would argue that's certainly a very understandable view. I'm just sharing with you, if you go into that comment, when 80% of non-Orthodox families are marrying outside the faith, you're going to alienate almost all of Jewry very quickly, because everybody has it in their family now, unless you're Orthodox.
no, not really. I mean, not everybody. And it's just like, I don't know.
Lev.
It's a whole nother discussion.
Lev,
80%, Lev.
I
Yeah.
will tell you, my nephew
Mhm.
dating a Korean girl. They've been dating for 3 years. He's 28. The likelihood is he's going to marry her. Right? Will she do some conversion? Maybe. Orthodox? Very unlikely. Which means for me, that's an intermarriage, right?
So I could say the same thing. Like, listen, my father's mother was not Jewish. Believe me, it was a problem. It was a problem for my
Different
father
era.
all his life. It still transcends into my life today as like, it was a real problem. It was a problem for his identity. It was a problem for him being accepted in Israel or being like, I hear what you're saying. I mean, maybe it was an opportunity and like, it was beshert that happened because here we are and I'm able to relate to it or whatever, transcend it. But
I really told it more about correcting, the courage of correction,
right
versus the courage of
we weren't talking
leaving
about
something
that.
alone. So I actually think the courageous thing would be to approach the person who was at your Kiddush table and tell them you were reflecting about it, and you just wanted the person to know. And of course, in your home, it's absolutely wonderful if that's how he feels and it's the thing to do. Fine, but you wanted him to know so that he should never have an embarrassing moment by somebody else,
No,
right?
I
Right?
just, I
You were
hear
right
that.
not to say something there.
And
You
I
were right.
I can do that. I'm just reflecting on when do I feel when do I feel the challenge of moral courage? I'm just, so that that's why I look at you when you say, not sure of the courage, when I say I look to you, because I know you are so good at that. You stand your ground, and in a beautiful way, that story, the way of relating the story and that it happened to you is so unoffensive. Oh, Shirley.
Thank you,
Ah.
Shirley.
Oh, wait, we got some other people. Please, let's see. Who's
Say
there?
hello to everybody. Here, say hello
That
to
is, that
them.
is Asher,
on.
that is Asher behind me.
Asher, we want to
Asher.
see you. Have courage, Asher.
Sorry,
Right.
I just lost my internet connection.
Well, we're glad you're back.
Yeah,
And we're still talking about courage, and we got into a topic of, because courage sometimes, when you see things wrong, speaking up, right? And we went into a
Yes.
little bit of digression about that. And sometimes it's right
Is.
not to speak up too, right?
yeah,
And,
having the courage to keep quiet, actually.
Wow,
Sometimes you have
wow,
to.
actually.
Look, I read the story about the children's author in Israel who committed
Yes.
suicide. What's his last name? Wilder, something like that.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah, right, which is just a dreadful story if accurate. And the Times pointed out that they went into the bookstores all around the community, and the books are still being sold, and the people in the bookstore knew about it and said they're good for sales. Now, could it be in a religious setting, somebody who has committed one of the gravest sins, probably, right, that those books could still be sold? That's not courage. And that to me is clearly not following our faith. I don't even know how to define what makes it not that way. So it's that stuff that makes it so hard, right? I want to go into those bookstores and buy every book and make it that nobody will ever be able to get them again. But
wow. Do you agree with that, Rabbi?
Do you remember, Maury? We spent a few Sundays on the rabbi that goes off the derech, right? Like what?
we covered many things, right?
Yeah, we did. It's a complicated, halachic issue, Uri.
Yeah, but I'm not sure I'm agreeing with Maury.
Now, I'm saying I'm not
I
sure.
should-
I'm not sure all rabbis agree with Maury either. There are some that do.
Yeah,
I
but I
think-
mean,
I'm sure I'm in the minority of it. Tell me why you don't agree. You think it's censorship or what? What do you think it is?
And
you've
the
got to
artist,
separate keep going.
I was just saying, it's like looking at the art or the artist. I mean, you can't throw
Correct.
them, you know.
By
Correct.
the way, in the corner of this page is a Gauguin dilemma. Do you know what that is?
I forget.
Okay, so Gauguin was a famous French painter
Right?
who left his family. He deserted
Oh,
them.
yeah.
He
Right.
deserted them to go to, was it the Philippines?
No, it was
Haiti.
I'm sorry, Leanne.
Tahiti. Correct.
He left, he deserted his family to go to Tahiti, and he created some of the world's best art, right?
Right.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Do you appreciate it? Or do you say this scumbag who left a woman and children into, with no, he just packed up
I
one day.
appreciate it.
Same thing with
I appreciate
Karlbach,
it.
Shlomo Karlbach. It's like similar problems. Do we still sing his songs?
Yes, exactly. I agree. The same issue.
I also think it's not black and white, right? We're not
Yeah, I
perfect.
agree.
Moshe made a big mistake. He hit the rock, right?
Yeah.
He had a lack of belief. God tells him in the Torah 20 times. The poor guy, every time I read it, the repetition, I start crying for him. Like, okay, God, we know he made a mistake. Stop reminding him. But it's Torah's Moshe, right? So there's got to be a red line where, yes, people make mistakes, but I personally agree with Maury in this situation. A mistake of this degree, not a mistake, of this degree, which is directly applicable to him, children.
Yeah.
That to me, out. No ways. You cannot read his
Okay.
books. The association is there. Whereas
Okay.
To have
I
a
feel
Jewish
this-
bookstore say that
Yeah.
they're putting profits over values,
it's
Yeah,
pathetic.
reprehensible.
It's sickening.
It
It's
is.
also sickening.
It is.
Hospitals do this too, like for-profit hospitals that profit off of the decisions that they make
Do we deliver the baby normally, or do
course.
we advocate a C-section? Or
There's
do
a-
we give the treatment to this guy, or do we recommend this treatment where we're going to make like $1 million if we use this? I mean, it's like, how does a hospital operate for profit? How do they put profit ahead of the health? It's like
Lev,
mind
this is one
blowing.
of one of the arguments on the other side of this COVID argument is that hospitals profited from people dying of COVID. It was better for them that they died of COVID than something else.
I think that may not be true, that the loss of the elective surgeries that they were supposed to have was a tremendous destabilization for their hospital
Yeah,
profits.
Mari,
So I don't know.
I don't want to get into it. I'm just saying that's kind of, it's one of the
They're
things-
ethical quandaries. They're ethical quandaries
Yeah.
that take courage, and I
I-
think come back. Go ahead, Ori.
I have these arguments with my brother about the operas and music of Wagner. Okay, I can't listen to Wagner. I can't visit Germany. He will listen to Wagner, and to me, Wagner's beliefs. He was an explicit anti-Semite. These operas stink of Aryan supremacy, and I can't separate that. And lots of Jews and others would say it's completely separable, like Lev says, it's the art. You can't take the artist. So on Waldman, I think I agree with you, actually. I think it's so interwoven here that it makes it very hard.
May I tell you my father-in-law's Devar for 1 second, please, because it's on Wagner.
Yeah.
So I think you read my father-in-law's book, or that-
I didn't read all of it. I read most of it.
but you know the story, right?
Yeah.
He like you loves history, particularly Jewish history, and he had read that Herzl loved going to see this opera, Tannhauser,
Yes.
written by Wagner. You know this story
Yes.
already, because I'll stop. I don't want to tell you.
Keep going.
No,
Keep going. No,
So,
don't. I
so
don't.
my father-in-law, he really is an intellect, and he kept digging at it. And what is this about it? And so then he showed me. He said, "Mari, look at these lines from the opera. I've never seen it, and I'm sorry because I'm going to recount it horribly, and I am no opera fan. Okay, but there's this scene where this bird is caged, and it finally gets released, and it goes, it gets away, and it gets its freedom." And I've shortened how it is, and my father-in-law wrote about it, and then I wrote a Devar about it based upon what my father-in-law did. And he said he felt that Herzl loved it so much because that's how he saw the liberation of the Jewish people. So then my father-in-law decides when he's, Austria, that he and my mother-in-law are going to go to Wagner's house. He goes in the house, he sees the tour, and he gets to the gift shop. And what's there? Herzl stamps from Israel. They're selling them in the store. So it's it's like this really difficult dichotomy of this dastardly man that the Nazis made even worse. It's just sometimes there's these little kernels, and this little kernel it makes you turn your head to say, there's got to be more to this, right? So anyway, that's the story.
That's great. So was your father-in-law somewhat chastened and kind of more ambivalent about it? The fact that they were selling the Herzl stamp, or did he think this is wrong?
He
and
thinks he
this
has
was-
the right answer, and he's interested in the anomaly of the situation. He's interested in the
Okay.
historical nugget, right? And
Okay,
I would love you to meet him, because the two of you he loves Rabbi Bergman. I mean, the two of you would have a wonderful conversation. But I just sharing with you because it's such an odd, I wrote it's called the Wagner Paradox is the name of my Devar, because it's such a strange outcome.
Yeah.
How could he have anything to do with the founding of the state of Israel?
Yeah, I think it's the exact same thing. Mari, beautiful.
There's a picture already, or you want
No,
to do
just
that?
this morning, I was chatting on WhatsApp with some people that we work on the 10 Commandments. We do like a
With
different one
markers?
each week.
Do you want to finish that one?
So we're
Or
dealing
something
with
like-
do not
Well,
be,
we're having a little interference, buddy. Thank you.
do not be a false witness, right? Don't be a false witness. And I want to share something with you. I don't know if you could see it over here, right? With regard to the statement of Rabbi, I don't know if I can make this bigger. Can you read it?
We can read it.
Yeah.
With regard to the statement of Yehuda, son of Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi, that David did not say hallelujah when he saw the downfall of the wicked, the Gemara relates that there were hooligans in Rabbi Meir's neighborhood who caused him a great deal of anguish. Rabbi Meir prayed for God to have mercy on them, that they should die.
Whoa.
Right? I guess mercy on him. Rabbi Meir's wife, Bruria, must have been from Russia, said to him, "What are you thinking? On what basis do you pray for the death of these hooligans? Do you base yourself on the verse, 'Let sin cease from the land,' which you interpret to mean that the world would be better if the wicked were destroyed? But is it written, 'Let sinners cease'? 'Let sin cease' is written. One should pray for the end of their transgressions, not for the demise of the transgressors themselves." And
It's a beautiful passage.
it's just so powerful, right?
Yeah.
I'll share that with you too. You don't do WhatsApp, right, Maury? Much?
I see that you send stuff. I'm not clear how to really work it, but yes, I look at it.
I'll
Yes,
give you a tutorial.
that's a beautiful.
Um,
Now back to courage.
that also takes courage, right? I think that's actually part of Rabbi Sachs. He goes on to say, you need, when someone wrongs you, you need courage to forgive them, to go on and think they're going to be better.
Yeah.
That's real moral courage. I think it's the courage to believe in people.
Maury really wants to move ahead.
Well, I'm curious,
Okay,
right?
let's go.
I'm curious to see if he says continuation of faith is not courageous versus being willing to change with faith is courage. That's, I'm sort of curious to see how he delves into this.
Right.
He doesn't deal with that particular question.
I don't think so.
No, not here. Not here.
Okay, hidden
Um,
world.
okay. Ha'olam nikra kach milashon ha'elem. I dug this up. This is a well-known, I don't know where the real source of it is, but you can definitely see from a linguistic point of view, right? Ha'olam means world. Ha'elem means hidden. Right? So the world, the Hebrew word olam comes from the word, or is related to the word helem, hidden. And that's because, well, most say God is hidden, but clarity is hidden, right? This supports the idea that yes, we are always in a way taking a risk. We don't know. We don't have that clarity. And the Jewish thinkers say, well, that's in order to have free will, because in a clear world, you don't have, right? In 100% clear world, there's no decision to make. Of course, it's the facts are before you.
Right.
So I just thought that would be an interesting connection.
Yeah. I'd never seen the Olam Helem. Ha'alem. I've never seen that before. That's very, very powerful. I like the emoji. It works.
Yes, thank you. It didn't quite copy from WhatsApp, actually. Okay, next. Okay, so here's an interesting thing. Okay, so here we are, right? I don't know if God exists or not. Should I believe in God? Faith is the courage to take a risk. And what if I'm wrong? Go on, Lev.
I would rather have lived believing the best about humanity and the universe than believing the worst. It is perfectly possible and coherent to believe that there is no creative intelligence at work in the universe, or if there is, it is blind. That life is vicious, cruel, and unjust. That homo homini lupus est.
Which means what? Right? I think man is a wolf, right?
Yeah. And eats man, dog eats dog.
Right? We're not really any different. So, it's an interesting way of looking at it again, right? Okay, what happens if I've based my whole life? And by the way, Maury, I do remember going through this in my early days. So yeah, I have to go back there. That's very interesting how faith changes over time. But yeah, if I'm wrong, do I regret having believed? And his argument is you won't actually, because what's the alternative? What are you choosing between? And the logical conclusion is life is vicious, cruel, and unjust, right? It's not such a great conclusion you come to if there's no God. So what are what are you losing? I guess is his argument.
Yes, it is his argument. Well, you're losing a lot is his argument, actually.
Do you think,
Because,
I'm sorry, Ori, I thought you were done. I apologize. Please continue.
keep going. No,
No, I want you to finish. I want to hear the because, please.
no, because the rest of this chapter, he argues that people who have belief have quote unquote better lives. They act more morally, they are more concerned with their fellow man, they improve the world. And without that, the chances of you improving the world and redeeming it, so to speak, are much less. Not that you can't be a moral person without belief.
Certainly, we know people who have faith that have no humanity, right?
Of course.
But I want to ask a really provocative question, which is, do you think he's implying in here, let me rephrase how I want to say this. The implication of his comment is, even if he's wrong, faith brings about the best in humanity. A very optimistic view.
Yes.
But I would question, and I'm sorry, and I trust my friends here, that I believe that 21st century Judaism is an optimistic place. We could certainly say performing mitzvah and the traditional view of it is some of the most optimistic thinking that there is, doing deeds to help others. But I think we've lost our way in some regards because we have been so scarred by destruction and so scarred from being a minority and oppressed people that we connect people to our faith out of fear instead of optimism. Everybody's quiet, so
No,
I don't know how to interpret it. I don't know how to interpret it.
My reaction is that is certainly possible. And for many people, that is how it operates. But that is wrong and an insufficient basis for maintenance of our people and of faith. Fear is never going to win the day.
It wins money. It wins
may
money.
win money in the short run, but in the long run,
it keeps you aligned because we have a common cause. All right.
Right.
Okay. But
It's the
Here
same
I'm a
argument that-
fundraiser. Here I'm a fundraiser. Okay. I get it. I think we have made a tragic mistake. And I think this is a good reason that 80% of the people are marching the other way.
What, that the fear is used as the argument?
We built everything. Institutional Judaism in the United States has been built for the last 50 to 70 years out of dealing with the Holocaust and Israel's survival, instead of celebrating who we are as a people and making people feel comfortable that celebration is what the faith is all about. We got it.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. I absolutely agree with that.
We blew it.
Well, for understandable reasons.
I
right?
agree.
You say we blew it, but here we are having this discussion. It's not blown
Yes,
yet.
Lev, we are, but where's the other 99.9%?
We blew
Well, I don't
it out
know.
of
I don't know.
despair.
It takes a lot to say we blew it. Like you and me, did we blow it?
No, the Jewish people.
The Jewish people. The Jewish people of the United States. I mean, is that representative of the entire world?
the
You know,
Jewish
Well,
people.
with being the largest population of Jewish people in the world, I think, right? Aren't we the largest?
It's very
And
close to
Israel
Israel.
and Israel blew it. Yeah, I agree with Maury in terms of the US Jewry. Yes, those are the two mistakes we made. And Israel's mistake was joining religion with state and turning off half the population to authentic religiosity and dismissing the experience of the diaspora as
Well
Jews.
said. Well said.
And so
You know,
You don't like this.
I'd
toy.
like to, I agree too. I think it's very profound what you're saying, Murray, and has to be really kept in mind with the work we're doing. Because at the end of the day, we're all doing the same work, right? We're trying to save our people. We're trying to get our people to wake up and say, I'm Jewish, I'm proud of it, I'm engaging with it, I want to learn more and become more, and you know,
I get great joy out of being a Jew.
yeah, and this is this is an unbelievable gift, and I'm grateful, etc. They don't. A lot of people don't like it when I say it. My friends in the Orthodox world. So, listen, you know, I'm of the opinion, basically, that Judaism's got it. You know, Judaism is halachic. That's the ideal. That's what we should strive towards. Not only, but that's a very important part of it, right? So, you know, that's the frum people. So I say to my friends, do you know what the greatest reason is that non-frum Jews don't want to be frum? The frum, right? They kill me for it. But I don't, you know, to me, as being part of having joined and being part of this Orthodox world, you know, yesterday we were walking, I was taking Babushka home. We push on a wheelchair to Weinberg Woods or whatever, it's great. And there was a guy walking down the street, and he's very overweight. He's a very big guy, very overweight. And he had a white shirt on, you know, he's got a big yarmulke and, you know, a beard, and his white shirt is like hanging out, you know, and he just looks what my parents would call shlochi. You know what shlochi means?
Schlumper.
A shlumper. And I say to Yehudis, and my knee-jerk reaction was, how can this be possible? How can this happen? You know, anyone that is not Orthodox, that is looking to engage in Judaism, is going to say, one thing's for sure, it's not there, right? Because that's not what it's so wrong. Now, the guy might be, you know, you could excuse him 100 times, and you could criticize me for being so superficial which I am. But the end of the day, Murray, if it was a joy and we got our act together, like Rabbi Sachs is saying, life isn't, you know, listen, who do I compare myself to? My brothers, right? And I know it's not so easy out there, right? Secular life is not that rewarding. Even with the money and even with the games and even with the cars and even with the distractions, secular life is not that great. Like, you know, there's a great life, whatever. There's a great life in Judaism. Engage in it, brothers. And they look at me and say, COVID? The religious community? Like, and they even COVID bash it, right? They're like, no, not going there. What for? So I think there's a lot. It's actually a bit of a different point to what you're saying, but if we're going to strive and survive, and the future of Judaism is with the happy people. Hasidism took over Judaism. There are more Hasidic Jews in the Orthodox world, I believe. I haven't done the count. There are more Hasidic Orthodox Jews than any other denomination, which is unbelievable, right? It's 200 years old or something. Why? Because your average person was like, oh, there's a way to do this that brings more joy. There's a way to do this that is not beating me up. I'm not doing it out of fear. I'm doing it out of love. So, yeah. Okay, good. Very important. Wow. I knew.
Well, I think I commend Sachs for writing this. I think this is, you know, a lot of people would say this is heresy for him to write this sentences here. Good for him. I
Yeah.
admire him more and more.
Why do you, what's heretical?
Well, he's acknowledging it's
Oh.
possible
Yes.
that God doesn't exist, but I love his framework to answering the question. Even
Yes.
if it's true, I
Yes.
want to be here because the structure of the faith is about the best about humanity.
Right.
That's just beautiful.
And he ran into a lot of trouble with the Orthodox Haredi community in London. They put a cherem on his other book called Not in God's Name. I think it's, or The Dignity of Difference. I'm not sure which book it was.
The dignity of difference. How we
Where
speak,
they, you know, the story, they censored the book and didn't let anyone buy it in the Orthodox community because it equated religions across the board. He said that all religions share valid assumptions and are equally, in a sense, relevant.
we have to
Judaism,
find we have to
Christianity.
find the bookstore in Jerusalem selling Walder's books. They'll
And we
sell
won't sell that book.
it.
I
Right.
bet that book's not in that store.
Right. Exactly.
No,
Exactly.
So they forced him, they forced him to change it. So he did some censoring and then they found it okay. And that's the second edition, which was published en masse and is now acceptable. But the Haredi community had a tough time with him and him with them.
Yeah, he's because you know, Uri, you really framed it. He's open and they closed.
Yep.
And it's a square and a peg.
Well, he showed courage.
Yeah,
Oh boy,
absolutely.
he really showed courage.
Absolutely.
I remember, actually, I have a personal connection to this story, so it's a nice one. But there was, I think, the head Reform rabbi in London, and Reform in London is not huge. Mainly, okay, whatever. There was a guy called Hugo Gryn, and Hugo Gryn was a Holocaust survivor, and actually a friend of Sachs. And when he died, Sachs went to his funeral.
Right.
And he got into, you know, the Haredi community went crazy with him. How could you honor this guy at the end, you know, and whatever. I don't remember the apologetics, but I remember when I made this decision at university that I would follow up university with yeshiva. And my parents were not happy. And one of their arguments was, you know, you're very engaged now in studying about the Orthodox tradition. Why, you've grown up Reform, right? Why don't you engage with that? So my first argument was, I have, and this is the result, which, well, I don't know if that was a fair argument. Well, it was somewhat of an argument. And then they said, well, go and speak to Hugo Gryn. I said, okay, I will do that. I guess I had the sense to honor them. I'm not sure why I agreed, but I did. And I went to meet Hugo Gryn, and I sat down, and he was a loving man. And he said, how can I help you? And I said, well, this is the story. I'm becoming a Baal Teshuvah. I want to go study at Or Sameach in Jerusalem, which is this black, you know, Haredi outreach yeshiva. And I want to know about Judaism. And he looked at me and he got a big smile on his face and he said, with the best of luck, please go study about Yiddishkeit. And that was it. And, you know, when I heard that he went to, you know, Jonathan Sachs went to Hugo Gryn's funeral, I was like, yes, you go to Hugo Gryn's funeral, because, you know, it's, yeah, there's a lot to that story.
The big
This is
turning
why-
point,
Go ahead, Craig.
sorry, the two big turning points in Sachs's own evolution, because he was a Baal Tshuva. He came from a Oxford, Cambridge philosophy and
But
a
Uri,
religious.
sorry, I know
Sorry.
you say this. Did he grow up not keeping Shabbat?
No, I think they were traditional, but it wasn't a God-suffused home. He grew up and went to school to study philosophy. I don't think he was deeply religious. I think he was
No,
traditional.
but when you say, I just wanted to know what kind of a, upbringing he
It
had.
wasn't anti-religious and it wasn't secular in the sense of banning religion, but it was a traditional home, as I recall. His father wasn't educated Jewishly, deeply. So he went on this journey after 2 years at Oxford, and he met two people who changed his life. One was Rabbi Soloveitchik at Yeshiva University. The other was the Rav Schneerson. And
The Rebbe.
all he did with Schneerson, the Rebbe, he went to him and he said, "What should I do with my life?" Basically. And the Rebbe said, looked at him and said, basically, become a leader. Don't just become a scholar, but you should become a leader, which was life-changing for him, actually. I forget what Soloveitchik said to him specifically, but those were the things that turned his whole path around, actually, for what it's worth.
It's worth a lot. It explains the courage component of it, right? Because he's talking
So
about his own
in
life. He's talking about his own life too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in relation to Soloveitchik, I was just going to say, Rabbi, that Dan last week suggested Rabbi Cook as a possible source of additional study. I was going to suggest, I've never read Halachic Man by Soloveitchik. I don't know if it's easy or not, but that's another thought I had. Maybe that's worthwhile looking at.
Well, I
I've
was
read
about
one
to
of his
say that
books.
I guess when Sachs meant Soloveitchik, his thought was, hang on a second. If this guy who is so incredibly intelligent is religious, there must be something to it.
Yes.
Basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can
yeah.
try. And I think it would be nice to do it in the same way. And maybe Murray will get involved a little bit. And we might have to go slowly and chapter by chapter, but take a few people. I'll work with a few people through the book and we can see
I
what
don't
he
know how
has to say.
difficult. I don't know how difficult it is, and I've never read Rabbi.
I
Cook,
find
but-
him very difficult. I struggle
okay.
with him, but
I would say this, and I read the book, The Lonely Man or something like that.
Yes.
Right. Okay. We might be better off finding a source that wrote about him than reading the original text.
Okay.
It might be more accessible for us.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
maybe.
And I don't think we need all the nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
We want to understand what's the general philosophy of these people so that when we're talking about things, we can say this is different and then that one. I think that's how we should do it. And because I think if we get too into the weeds, we lose our audience.
I didn't get it because of Dan, but I have this book. Can you see it?
Rob Cook,
That's what-
Yeah.
lean
and
it forward, go forward with it.
It's written by a guy called Mirsky.
Okay.
And it's exactly what you're talking about, Murray. It makes Rabbi Cook accessible. So
Yeah,
if we did Rabbi Cook, I'd actually want to do this book because you can read it. It's you can get something out of it, and it's, I hate to say it, the digest of a digest of a digest, right?
Well,
Oh, that's
that's
good.
okay.
That's good.
That's okay.
That's
We're
good.
not reading this stuff in Yiddish and Hebrew.
Right.
We're not in the place and time that they were in writing it.
Right.
So I'd rather delve into it and appreciate it instead of banging my head against the wall like I did with the Talmud and saying, this is impossible for me to break through. It was only frustrating. It wasn't the experience I had hoped it would be.
And another one I have, by the way, which I think we would all find fascinating. I plucked up some courage not so long ago, and I said to Rabbi Wahlberg, I said, I'm teaching at the school, make a chavrusa with me once a week and we'll learn Rambam. Because that's,
You and Wahlberg?
that's the foundation of his thinking.
I know.
And you're talking about Maimonides, not Nachmanides.
Yes, Maimonides.
Yes.
So he said, he got back to me And he said, listen, I thought about it. I'm too busy doing whatever he's doing, but I'll give you some reading to do. And he gave me this really interesting book, also a digest of a digest, right? Taking a few things. And I think that would also be an intro. Okay, so we got three possible things.
What's the Maimonides book? What's the Maimonides book?
Give me 1 second.
Or you're going to be reading forever. You keep this up.
I'm not going to read them cover to cover, but I was at Shupsy's the other day.
Uh-huh. You should ask them if they have the Wilder book.
Which book? Well, that's an interesting question. Do they sell children's books? Yeah, maybe.
You know what?
It's an-
I think his books are in Hebrew. I don't think they have Hebrew.
Oh,
children's
okay,
books, you know?
okay.
I only want to know if they sell it. That's all. What is
Yeah,
it?
yeah. What's that, Maimonides? Who's it by? What's it?
Okay, it's called Menachem Kellner, Kellner, and it's called Maimonides' Confrontation with Mysticism.
Oh, I told you when I was at Shupsy's, I saw this book by a guy called Daphne, the Rav, and the Rebbe, which compares and contrasts the Rebbe,
Right.
Menachem Mendel Scherson, and Soloveitchik, who were friends and contemporaries in New York at the time, which I was going to buy but didn't.
Okay,
So
friends.
this is good. We have choices. Good.
We have
Lovely
choices.
conversation this morning.
I
Thank you.
forget what I did next. Oh, here we go. Right.
Okay.
So the happiness of being religious, right? Right. Yismach lev mevakshe Hashem. The heart of those who seek the Lord will rejoice.
When we say Yismachu, is that the same thing, means heart, or what?
No, it's simcha from the word sameach, right? So that's
I see it now.
happiness. So
Mhm.
lev is the heart. So yismach, it will be happy, the heart. Mevakshe Hashem. To bikush is to desire, to seek. And I think what's interesting in the verse is it doesn't say the heart of those who are cleaving to God are happy. It's even the ones that are searching for God.
Nice. Eitz Chaim hi lama chazikim ba.
Right,
V'tomchei ha'meushar.
right. I remember when I got to yeshiva, the Israeli one I went to. Sorry, it wasn't really Israeli, but all right. The first little class I gave was, if you're not happy in your religious experience, you're doing it wrong. Because the prescription is that it will lead to rejoicing, right? It's a tall order.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a tall order, right, Murray?
It's
Okay,
a tall
that's fine.
order, and we got to do a better job of it.
We do.
Yeah.
Come on, Uri, give us one yismachu, and then we'll all be happy for the rest of the day.
What are you asking for?
Look, he's got those grandchildren with him. Is there not a Yismachu there?
Are you asking for a rendition of Eitz Chaim hi? Is that what you're
Well, you know the yismachu? Yismachu b'malachusecha.
Sure.
ישמחו במלאכותך, שומרך בקוראי עונג שבת, ישמחו במלאכותך.
Okay.
I've never heard you sing before. I had no idea. Wow. That's beautiful.
Happens. It happens. The Spirit
Beautiful.
takes me only when the rabbi asks me. Other than that, I
I'm
can't
going to
sing.
have to text Heidi right now that she has missed out.
You know,
He has
Heidi's.
sung before for us, Mari. He has sung before for us, and maybe you missed it the last couple
I not heard that, but there's
times.
George.
I was pretty blown away as well the first time, and
Oh my goodness.
when I was like, "What? Wow!"
When COVID's over, may it be over soon, and I think we have to get together with Eli Schlossberg, who's a Carlebach chassid and plays nice guitar, has a pretty good voice, and get together for a sing song, because there's something to it, to sit around and sing songs of
I
joy.
agree.
By the way, Uri, Heidi's brother is a chazan. as a
Oh, really?
professional.
What's his name?
I
You know,
forget.
where
Mari,
does
you
he sing?
remember?
I don't know her maiden name. I don't remember that.
Where does he sing? You know?
There's a temple up or conservative up in Jersey, I think.
That sounds
Okay.
right.
We'll have to get him as well.
Well, thank you for the lovely session. We'll continue it in a week. Learn more.
Okay, please go.
Do you want to spend a minute on our application?
Sure.
Okay,
Okay.
goodbye, gentlemen. Lev, thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Very well done today. Lev, be healthy.
You're muted. Lev,
I
you're
will just say
muted.
this, Mari, that maybe now, can you hear me now? Can you hear
Yeah.
me now?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That's you're on mute. The famous words of the new century. But anyway,
Right.
I want to say that maybe all of this failure that that your perception is like was the only way we were going to be able to get to this point, like because all these people knew that we were just that there was like no hope to keep the Judaism alive if we we would have like not been able to stay in this country maybe if we were all like Hasidish and like it wouldn't have worked. Like they had to change their names, they had to do these things, they had to reform. But maybe now it's like time to do another reform. And maybe that's
It
what we're
is, and I'm not unique in my thinking. I'm 20 years behind the commentary on this. But what happened was, in my opinion, that organized religion went after the money and knew they could sell fear.
Mhm.
And it worked really well on a monetary basis.
Right.
And it
Look
still works. I bet the amount of money that was raised post Texas or Pittsburgh was phenomenal. And of course, the money needs to be raised to have better security, better training, awareness, all of those things. But we should be raising money on our potential as a people. So that's sort of my thinking about it. I think we may need
it
to be
doesn't
raising
work.
money.
They're mutually exclusive. As soon as you put money in anything, it just corrupts it.
I don't think the Chabad raises money on what was lost.
Mm.
They raise money on what the hope is we will be. And of course, I'm making a huge generalization. So I think that there are models out there, right? I will tell you that when I went out in Pearlstone and I listened to Yakir talk about his vision of being an environmental place for Jews to connect and why now is the time more than ever. I find it a little scary because it makes me think about what's happening to the planet, but I also find it very rewarding because I believe in his theory that environmentalism is a place for the secular community to connect into Judaism and very effectively, right? So I think there are messages out there. I just think they're not the primary messages. So we will,
All right.
we have a lot more to do. We have a lot more to do.
Until
We're going
next
to raise some money too. I'm going to help the rabbi with this grant application. So we're going to sell optimism there too, about how
Okay.
education can bring about connecting people into Judaism by thinking about how the most basic thing of our experience, the 10 Commandments, is an entryway to a new engagement to Judaism. And I think that's a beautiful future mission too.
Yasher Koach.
Thank you.
Good
Be well,
luck.
buddy. Take care.
Thank
Have a nice
Thank
day.
you, Lev.
Bye.
See you Tuesday.
Bye-bye. Bye.
See you Tuesday.